when you are in fear, you are a puppet of whoever wants to control you. 90% of the media is owned by them. So you have the illusion of opposing forces. And it's only because when we are divided, we can be conquered. We have to wake up. This earth will just increase its vibration and will become a 5D earth. But we are the ones doing it. Ascension is individual. And this is what we are being called to do at this moment in time, to become superhumans. When you are constrained and limited by the senses, you think that this is who you are. This is not who you are. This is an avatar to play here. And then everything we learn from that game, we take it back to the one plane. God is all there is. It's not something external. It's all of us. It's the force that created the world, the source of who we are, the cause and the effect. There are 8 billion realities. And the reality we are living in is, for me, the right motivation is to benefit others as much as we can while we are here and contribute to a better world in whatever way we can from wherever we are with our talents. And I think this is as far as we can go, because everything else is not in our hands. And what I have seen when I have had some, let's call it visions of the afterworld, what I saw is like you are unable to realize how far your actions go and the ripple effects of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. So we have to keep that in mind, because in our society, in our culture, we only give importance to practical results, tangible results. And we forget about what really matters, which is the motivation, the seeds that you are planting, because this is where it's going to have a ripple effect on other people. And near-death experiences say that very clearly. It's like the only thing that goes with you is the love you give and your motivation. You know, it's like the wisdom that you are able to gather through all those experiences you go through. And then when you do the revision of your life, the reviewing of your life, once you go through the tunnel or whatever else, it's not at all what title you got, how much money you made, how much pleasure you got, how many relationships, all that has no importance whatsoever. What you are going to go through is feeling whatever you made others feel, like whatever your actions provoked on other people, that's what you're going to go through, but not from your own point of view, but from the point of view of all those people you touched, even in whether it is in a negative way or in a positive way. And then how those people that you touch had also effect on other people in a chain effect. So I think this is what we have to keep in mind, that we don't know, and we just have to check our motivation and be really aligned with our thoughts, our speech, and our actions, so we do our best at every single moment in our lives.
And sometimes when we're going about our way, we are actually driven by unconscious beliefs, subconscious limiting stuff that got packed in and programmed in really early on. Like one of my quotes that I sit with a lot is like, the Jesuits, said, if you show me the boy before the age of 7, I'll show you the man. And I know that's very gender specific. Men are a little bit simpler in some ways, maybe. But nonetheless, I think you get the point in terms of, there is so much that can be, that's guiding us and driving us that we're not even conscious of, right? There's the unconscious, which is, what I don't know that I know. But then there's the unconscious, which is just completely out of reach for me as well. And there seems to be so much in that space that can be guiding us, that can be influencing our motivations and our intentions without even our knowledge to some degree. How do we do the work on that?
Well, we are certainly programmed since we are born in this world. We are programmed to think in a certain way, to behave in a certain way, to even dress in a certain way, to believe certain things. We are programmed since we are born here. We are encultured. And we have to go through that, because this is the rules of the world right now in the third dimensional world. But I don't think we are programmed where we are not determined by it. And this is where free will comes into play. So we can choose. Of course, we have many things that we are not aware of, but this is the path we have to take to become aware of what the programming is in our minds, why we do things the way we do, why we believe certain things, and then start questioning. Because the path here towards ascension is the path of questioning and becoming a sovereign being. As long as you comply to whatever the expert says, or where you just follow the crowd because it's the majority of people and you don't want to feel different, and you just believe whatever the government or the media says, then you keep being determined by it. But it's your choice. You choose to be determined by your programming. And I'm not saying this is an easy thing to break away from the matrix, to break away from that programming that is all around us, not just when we were children, but right now, through social media, through mainstream media, through the movies, through the series, through everything, all the inputs that come to us is to program us in a certain way. And it's socially engineered as well. So we just have to be aware, because it's only when you become aware of it that you have the choice. If you are not aware, if you are asleep, then you are like an automat. You are a puppet of whoever wants to control you. And fear is a good controlling system as well. When you are constrained by that fear, you believe whatever is being told to you, then you feel powerless and you give away your power to other people, to other, I would say, elite or whatever, whoever is trying to control you. So it all starts with breaking away from that fear to questioning whatever is given to you, and to become a sovereign being so you can choose whatever goes into your life, your mind, your body. And for that, you need to be very, very conscious. And most people are not conscious at all, and they don't want to be either.
Yeah, the don't want to be piece is kind of interesting. It's almost like death by convenience and comfort, would you say? Is that level 1, the conformist? Is that who we're sort of talking about in the 7 levels of wisdom at the moment?
I would say it's the second tier, the conventional tier. So the 3 levels that are in the conventional tier are like that, because they believe there's only one paradigm, the paradigm of society, and it's the paradigm of the rules that are active right now in our society. Those are the only rules possible, and we are constrained by them. And you think that the only way to acknowledge or to find out about reality is the rational mind. And this is just one part of our mind. We have other parts. We have the transpersonal mind. We have the intuition. We have the creativity. We have other ways to analyze and to be in contact with reality in many different forms. But when you are in the conventional tier, you don't think that is possible. And most people would just belittle any other way, because they think, okay, you are out of the general, the mass, so you are not one of us. And being alone and choosing to be alone, it comes with a price. You're not going to have the support of the mass, but it's the only way to start growing. It's the only way to start evolving in consciousness, because otherwise you act like a child. You are being told what to do. And that's what children do. So we could say children in level of consciousness sort of thing, or adolescent level of consciousness. But we have to become adults. We have to mature. And that takes a lot of effort. I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah, because I think so much of just following the herd can be, I mean, there's so many joys and pleasures in that alone, What is it, do you think, that usually invites a person to start to venture out into a more individualist path? Like why would we do that when, friends, community, family that we're sort of already used to feel so good?
I think it's the inner voice. We all have that inner guidance, and that comes from our higher self or our essence, the essence of our being, who we really are. But it's just that voice is hidden under so many layers that we don't hear it normally. So you have to be at that level, at that stage when you want to start hearing that voice. It may be really a tiny voice, or and you can, it's only like whispering to you. But if there's something in you that wants to connect with that, and if you don't want to take that step ahead, then is when you stay the conventional, because it's like this programming, what one of the reasons or the causes of this programming is that you are disconnected with yourself. Because when you are disconnected with that voice, with that guidance, then you follow the rules, and then you are a puppet of power, of those people in the power, so as long as you are identified with the ego, you will follow that track, the herd, as you said. But there's something inside of us, and this is for every single human being. We have that spark of divinity. But because of the veil of forgetfulness, we forget. We don't remember. We don't remember why we came here. We don't remember our mission. We don't remember where we come from. We don't remember anything. So it comes, all that guidance is inserted in us, is in our hardware, but we have to make room for it. And if our head, if our mind is always in constant chatter, if our focus is always external, then there's no way we can connect with it. There's no space. There's no silence to listen to the voice. Everything is covered with noise and distractions. So that's the way we get trapped into the matrix, because it's very, very easy to be there, and it's very difficult to break away from it. It's not, I'm not saying that it's not feasible. It is feasible, and we are called to do it, but it takes a lot of inner strength and awareness.
A question I don't want to ask, so I'm going to ask, is how much of the forces to play at power do you think, is there an intentional sort of keeping, like it's easy to control people that are sort of keeping themselves in the ego state? And so you look at mass marketing and all the things that we're sort of consuming, and it's like, do you want this? Do you want that? Chase this carrot, chase that carrot, chase an apple, chase a cucumber. It's all still a carrot. How much of that is intentional, in your opinion, to try and keep people asleep because they're easier to coordinate, organize, etc., etc.?
I think a good percentage of it is intentional. That is called social engineer. And I think we just have to look backwards, the last 4 years. We see how intentional it has all been. And it's only now that some people are starting to wake up and realize, okay, this is not what was told to us. And look at these, let's say, side effects. And look at this, and look at that. And little by little, the truth is coming out. So, of course, it is intentional. Because when you are in fear, you are easily controlled. So you are not independent to do whatever you want. It's like, I have power over you. And that's why people need to be afraid to be able to be controlled. And people need to be separated from their inner voice, so they don't follow that inner voice and inner guidance. And they think, okay, I should follow whatever someone, expert, authority, so-called authority, will tell me, because I don't know what to do and I want to be safe. And this obsession with security and certainty is what leads people to accept things that are unacceptable. And of course, if you look at some other forces, let's say the big American, and they are not even only American, but they'll say asset management firms. There are 3 management firms, gigantic, that control most of the assets of the world. Only BlackRock, Vanguard, and a third one that is owned by BlackRock They control 90% of the companies in the American stock market. If there were a country, BlackRock, if BlackRock only were a country, it would be the third country after the United States and China. And they own most of the companies, from pharma to airlines and media. 90% of the media is owned by them. And so you have the illusion of opposing forces. And it's only because when we are divided, we can be conquered. So that's why everything is controlled in a way. So we feel that we humans are not connected. We are not one single family, because you believe this and I believe the opposite. But it's all played against us. So we have to wake up, as part of the game here on 3D Earth. And we accepted to come into this matrix. We knew the rules. The rules are not fair. They are not just. But those rules are meant to be transformed. They are meant to be overcome. They are meant to be transmuted. But you can only do that if you are aware of it. If you think that everything is the way it is and it cannot be changed and it's the best way that things should work, then how are we going to shift into a new earth? It's impossible.
Hey there, guys. Hopefully you're loving this conversation with Monica. She is beyond incredible. We're about to dive even deeper into the global affairs of things and the evolution of consciousness and the non-dual state. If you're loving these conversations, please do take a moment to hit subscribe to this channel. It helps so much with everything we're trying to do with expanding consciousness, helping people live a spiritually aligned life, promoting positivity, promoting the power of wisdom and the love of wisdom and the wisdom of love. Oh my God, everything we're trying to do here can be just powered and propelled by your subscription. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. At the moment, 95% of you are watching your second or your third or your fourth or your fifth video here on the Inspired Evolution, but you haven't yet taken the time to subscribe. So please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel so we can grow and evolve together. Stay inspired, keep evolving. Back to the episode. I do want you to describe what a new earth looks like. But just before we go there, do you think more and more people are waking up at the moment? Because I'm finding it quite strange. I'm meeting some people that are popping into maybe because of the podcast, I meet some very interesting people such as yourself as well. But I also, even just in my local community here in Australia, like I found a couple of people popping into the non-dual state of awareness, and they're just living in there. And I'm like, we were friends, we still are friends, but it's like now I'm like, huh? Like my friends change because obviously when they pop into that state, their sense of attachment to friendship is also evolved and stuff. So I've been finding that really strange. That I'm sure maybe even I'm not sure, but I posit that maybe a few hundred years ago, people were probably going to India to meet a few of these spiritual gurus because they were in this particular state. And now there's a couple of people in my backyard popping into this state. Do you think there is more of an awakening underway going on, or am I just in a weird little echo chamber bubble here at the Inspired Evolution?
No, I think you are right. I think we are the biggest minority that has ever existed in our recorded history. I'm not going to other parts of our history like Lemuria and Atlantis. That was a total different thing. But in our recorded history, I believe this is the biggest minority we've had of awakened people. And this is growing and growing. And there are many things at play. We are at the end of an era. So it's totally natural that this is happening. And many people are noticing all these solar flares that are reaching the Earth.
As we're speaking, we're getting green in the sky at night. Sorry, I've interrupted.
I know. No, that's okay.
Please continue. Sorry.
So that influx of energy from the central sun is felt, and of course that you will put like scientific names for it, but it doesn't really matter. It does affect our energy because we are energy in movement, in a slow movement, but still we are energy. So we are becoming affected by that. So in a way, it's like, I would say, we get all those light rays, and not photon. I'm not talking about photon light, but We are photonic light. We are talking about an energy that's a very high vibrational. And that is changing us. That is helping us. That is contributing to our own growth. So, of course, here is like if you put effort and focus on evolving, you are going to be held and supported and taken even higher and higher. So there are a certain number of things coexisting right now that make this moment in time very, very special. And as you said, we are seeing green and aurora borealis auroras in I don't know, in places that is impossible. It was impossible before.
Do you think there's a lot of, because it's a really weird time, there's a lot of despair, but then when I speak to someone like yourself, there's also a lot of hope. Is that how it's meant? Is that how the awakening's meant to look? Is like the breakdown, the breakthrough? It's all a bit of a soup. You said it's also the end of an era. Maybe you can speak to that and explain kind of why everything looks a bit upside down, but also there's a lot of hope for it getting finally the right way up as well. It's all a bit confusing, isn't it?
Well, I think the way I see it and what I have seen in my visions is that they're like two trains. And for a very long time, those trains went in parallel. But now those trains are just diverging and they are separating more and more. And this is what we are seeing, as you were saying before, you were mentioning it. It's like, okay, there are people that are going to an ascending train and you can tell, and you see people that are waking up and they're becoming more spiritual and they are seeing things through the matrix and they don't want to belong there. And they're working on kindness and compassion, and they are working on becoming the best version of themselves, and they want to really leave a good heritage behind them, and they are watching their thoughts and their emotions, and they are changing, they're evolving, they're becoming more and more positive. And this is growing and growing. But there's also the other train, and the other train is people are becoming more negative, more fearful, they are becoming more programmed by social media and series and movies, and they are completely afraid of everything because they are watching TV and the news are so negative. And I think these two realities become very different realities. So we are in the same planet, but at the same time, their world is very different from my world. And I can see with my neighbors. I mean, we live almost door to door with them. And the world they're living in is not my world. I am living in a completely different world. So at the end of the day, the world and the reality is not just one reality. There are 8 billion realities. And the reality we have, or we are living in, is the reality that our mind is constructing. So most people have these movies going on in their minds that are so biased and so hostile and full of criticism and fear and jealousy and ill will. And this is the world they are living in. And we have to look at it as if we were going to a cinema. And when you go to the cinema, you see the movie and you get so much into it that you are swept away by your own emotions because for you it's real. But at some point you understand this, okay, my mind works like that. So we become, or we are really, our own script writers, our own directors, and our own protagonists in our movie. So this is the thing, we can choose. If we don't like the movie that is playing because we don't like how we feel, then you can change the movie. It's up to you. And this is what people don't understand. They think that the world is like that. No, it's your filter. It's the lenses through which you are looking at the world. So yes, most people have these negative filters right now. And for them, the world is just completely chaotic and very, very negative. And they think there are more wars, which is not true. I think that there used to be many more wars and many more people dying because of them. And so many other things are just taken out of context. So what we need to look at is, what is your filter? Because this is where it's going to change your reality and the experience you have with the world. So there are two trends. Those trends are separating more and more, and there are less and less chances for people to go from one train to the other. This is what is happening right now.
That's a bit of a stark reality for those people that do want to switch trains, but I'm sure there are some people that want to switch trains, or even, and this is probably two questions in one, I probably should have staged it out a little bit better, but there are probably people that are on the train that's sort of coming into the Ascension, but they have people that are on the other train that are very dear to them. And that's probably a bit painful for them as well. And they probably want to bring some of them along. Any words of advice for people that do want to jump trains, how to jump trains, how to change our filters? Yeah, there's many questions in one. My apologies, but yeah.
I think we still have time, and that's why things are moving at a slower pace that many of us would like. And this is the reason. The reason is because we are giving the chance to everyone, so everyone has the chance to do that. So it's really a question of free will. If you're not doing it, it's because you don't want to do it. And you're not prepared and you're not ready for it, which is fine. We just have to remember that we will all end up at the same place, which is source. We will all go back home. We will all go home and back to source. So if we know that, we should understand that from a compassionate point of view, you leave people choose their own pace. There's no hurry to come back. When you're ready, you want to go back. But when you're not ready, you need more experiences, because it's through those experiences, you are going to learn the lessons you have planned for, and you don't know. This is the thing. We think we know what other people have to go through, and we think we know how fast they should go, and we think we know that they should go with us at this exact moment. We don't know. This is the ego speaking. But from a higher point of view, the infinite plan is perfect. So they're just going at their own pace, which is totally fine. Don't meddle with it. They need that. And in the end, we will all meet at the same place because we are part of oneness. So it's all right. We just have to feel it from our heart and have a compassionate outlook on life and people, I don't know if that answers your question.
It really does. I know I asked like 12 questions in one question, so you did amazing. Thank you so much. One of the filter substitutions that I find, obviously awareness and taking the time for mindfulness to sort of sit and be present and witness stuff as it arises and not to attach to it and sort of create the space between what's arisen, is an incredibly profound practice that cannot be overstated enough. However, it also requires a bit of discipline, a bit of sitting, and I'm afraid to use the word hack, but one of the things that is easier to access, let's call it that, has been actually, I find with clients, gratitude. And I know it's like we're talking about gratitude. It's like, yeah, we are. But as a filter substitution, do you think gratitude is one of those like really low-hanging fruits to assist people on their path and journey?
Yeah. I think gratitude is available, as you said, to all of us. And I think gratitude is the fastest way to change your mindset from negative to positive. So if you want to do it really fast, that's the fastest track you can take. And it assures you that you are not going to take for granted anything in your life, because we are wired in our brain to look at life from a negative point of view. And this comes from our ancestors, 200,000 years ago, when that part of the brain was developed, was because we were in an environment that was very hostile. So we had to have that sort of radar of potential dangers and threats. And because you could be really eaten by those predators around you very quickly, very easily. So we needed that. The radar was working very, very well. So the problem here now is that we still have that sort of radar for potential dangers, but you go out of your house and there's no lion ready to go and eat you alive. But we still have that. So what that provokes is that we will naturally look at the potential dangers in our lives. We look at what is going wrong. We look at what we would like to have, but we can't, or we don't have it right now. We look at all the potential problems. We look at all the things that could go wrong. And the list is infinite. So when you go and when you let yourself be dragged by that impulse, that it's very natural, it's very biological. But if you let yourself do that, then you become very bitter, you become very negative, you become depressed, you become hopeless even, because that's what this mechanism does to you. So we should leave that for a real potential danger, like, okay, you are crossing the road and you didn't see a car coming, then that radar will be perfect. But it's for very life-death moments, when you have a real danger. But for the rest, you need to work on yourself, because our brain is not designed for happiness, it's designed for survival. So we need to go beyond the animal instincts in us and become superhuman. And this is what we are being called to do at this moment in time, to become superhumans. That's what we are going to be. And for that, you need to go beyond those impulses that are natural and biological within us.
Hi there, guys. I wanted to take a quick moment just to introduce you to my one-to-one coaching. It's something that I deeply love doing. As you can tell, conscious conversation is such a massive part of my life. And having one-to-one, deep, meaningful conversations with people where I get to show up as your brother or as the coach or as your mentor has been such a gift for me personally, and a gift for lots of the people that I have supported on the journey of living a more spiritually empowered, spiritually powered, spiritually aligned life. You don't have to take my word for it. Here's some examples of people all around the world that have experienced profound transformations through this coaching experience.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines. And
he's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing, and Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
In control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him, and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate, because you won't be disappointed.
Alrighty, so hopefully that's inspiring your evolution onwards and upwards. And if you are so inspired to evolve, you can book in a one-to-one call with me directly at www.amrit.coach/life. And guys, if I can say so myself, I do think this is something quite special. Most people that I see building things online don't really work with people this deeply, this intimately, one-on-one as things start to grow, just because it is so time intensive. And yet I'm so deeply passionate about the transformation that comes from one-to-one coaching that just isn't available anywhere else. It would be my absolute honor and a pleasure to support your spiritual awakening, your spiritual path, your spiritual unfoldment. It is my life's work. I look forward to seeing you in the call. Back to today's podcast. Bit of a quick change in gears, and we'll come back to the 7 levels of wisdom and how to ascend the stages from the place that we're in. You get visions of the future. When was the first time that started to happen for you, and was it disconcerting? And how does that come about for you?
Well, it came as a progressive path. I started to have visions of the past, and then I had visions of other worlds, and it all came progressively. So I guess it comes when you are ready. The first time that happened to me is when I first went to India, and I was in contact with the Tibetan Lamas and receiving teachings from them and the Dalai Lama. That was the first time when all this was activated, was triggered. And yes, it was a bit disconcerting at the very beginning, but at the same time, because I have studied a lot before that, I knew that it was possible. It was not like, okay, I'm going
preparation was
crazy.
present.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I've interrupted again.
No, that's true. And I thought, I didn't think I was going crazy, but it was disconcerting. And I went to talk to the lamans and say, okay, this is happening to me. What is this? And they say, okay, this is a natural occurring thing. Don't pay too much attention to it. Just keep working on your mind. Keep working on your ego. Keep working on what really matters. These are side effects when you start evolving and you start like going upwards in the ladder of consciousness, so to speak. But don't pay too much attention to it because it can be a distraction. So I think this is important. And for me, this is something that I take to heart. I pay attention to that because it gives me a lot of information, but I don't put my focus on that because then it will distract me from my own evolution. And we have the evolution and how to go up the ladder is by working on your mind, by training your mind, by watching yourself closely, and by transforming all the negative emotions into positive ones. And by, of course, by dissolving the ego, by disconnecting with the ego, by not identifying with whatever the ego says. And in my experience, these are the keys to go upwards. And it takes a lot of work, of course.
I'm remarking on, I was listening into a story the other day and how a gentleman was actually speaking to, I'm going to paraphrase and butcher the entire story, so pardon me in advance for doing that. But basically, a gentleman, he was in Africa, and he was speaking to his brother, and he said, "Look, I actually hear our father speaking to me, even though he's like now that he's passed, I hear him speaking to me." And his brother said, "Wonderful, that's fantastic," and it was like a conversation, and they bonded over it. And he reflected, the reflection was, being in more of an Eastern sort of climate, that was accepted, even, what you described, it was, you're lucky that you're in a Buddhist environment, in an Eastern environment where it's like, okay, this is something to be cultivated, acknowledged, but don't go too deep into the rabbit hole and, stay focused on your work and your path. As opposed to in the West, it's like, oh, I can hear or see some things, and it's like, okay, let's put you in a lab coat in an institution over and it's the receptivity such, and it's, it was really remarkable to just use the example of the African gentleman, because if he had, if he was aware that if he was in the United States and he had mentioned that to, well, first of all, he wouldn't mention it to anybody that, oh yeah, I can hear my dad speaking to me from the other side, first of all. And should he have said that to anybody, he would have, some very different consequences rather than, his brother going, oh, that's fantastic, because of the openness. And especially, I guess, African spirituality is a bit more earthy, and they're open to that in that regards as well. Just a reflection piece. I'm not really sure there is a question in there, but your thoughts and sentiments on that?
Well, this happens to all the mystics, and it happened in the past, and it's happening right now. It's like all the mystic people, everyone that is in close contact with, let's call it God or the divine force, they hear voices, they have visions, but they don't take it as something unnatural. It's a natural thing to do. Our thing is unnatural, thinking that we only use, that everything has to be rational and everything has to be approved and stamped by science.
Sense-based. Everything has to be sense-based.
and what is that? It's not even scientific, because science is a method of knowledge. It's not something that is written in stone, and it's always changing. What was real for scientists is unreal today because science evolved, and then the beliefs change, and they're all beliefs as well. So we just have to let that part of our society have its place, but it's not the only lenses. It's only one filter. I come back to this again and again, because our connection, our experience of life becomes of the lens we use. So yes, as you said, in Africa, they are very close to their ancestors. So the way to interpret those voices is my father speaking, or is a member of the clan speaking. Then you will go to people that are religious, and it was Jesus speaking to me. It was Mary speaking to me. And then you go to people that are in connection with the Pleiadians and other civilizations in the universe. And it's like, no, it was the Pleiadians talking to me. Oh, it was an angel talking to me. So, and you go to the east part of the world, and it's like, okay, it was Buddha talking to me, or it was Sadhguru, or it was Padmasambhava. So the filter is what changes the name, the label you give to the voice or to the vision. But the vision is the same. It's a connection with a higher ground, with light beings, with people, I would say people, but beings, energies that are more evolved than ourselves, and we cannot see with our physical eyes. But as we continue ascending, our physical eyes and our physical senses will be only one way to acknowledge reality, because we have other senses. And not physical, of course, but we have other ways. So I would say that's my explanation.
Yeah, thank you. And I think for people, as they start tuning into communication coming from another place that is not what they can verify in this 3D human experience that we normally rely upon, they start to, like, fear starts to creep in. And yet it's really interesting because I guess I'm using an example we were referring to before around solar flares. Like we've had, we had Pam Gregory on the podcast, and she's an astrologist, and she was saying something like, in the last 30 days, we've had like 28 solar flares. And, you know, like only just 10 years ago, we barely had one a year. And, you know, there's this information that's pouring in that we can't necessarily, well, now we can see because even the sky's going green. But previously, you know, you couldn't even see. But there's these unseen forces at play. And, you know, her interpretation a little bit was, you know, this is all part of the ascension. Even though you can't see it, there are unseen forces guiding you, supporting your awakening. And yet when we've broached this conversation around unseen forces, there's always, you know, a large contingent of people approach it with hesitation and fear. Can you guide us through that journey a little bit? Because so much of life has supported us to become where we are, and yet we struggle to trust.
Well, but because I think we should take into account that there are different levels of evolution also outside of us, so to speak, you know? It's not just within our mind, it's also outside. This is a universe of several universes on continuous progress. So the whole picture is very complex. It's just that we don't see it and we just disregard that, but it's very complex.
Hey there, guys. Quick little question. How are you finding your evolution going through the 7 levels of wisdom? How would you identify whereabouts you're at, potentially where you're stuck in your journey? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And that's always me writing back to you. So yeah, I'll see you in the comments section. Back to today's episode.
So let's say that there are other dimensions, and as you go upwards, you know, you will see different things as well. And different beings with a different vibrational state will be inhabiting those worlds. Let's call it that way for a lack of better term. So, for example, if you leave your body and you do like astral travels, then you go into the astral world, which is a vibration that is like 4th dimensional, sort of. And there is very dangerous because you will find spirits, like people that have been alive before, but then they left their bodies, and because their vibration is so low, they are encroached to earth. They are around us, but they don't see the light yet. They should go to the light to continue their evolution, but they don't because they are afraid that they are very materialistically oriented. So that's what you're going to encounter. So of course there is a lot of danger there, because if you stay there, you're going to be in touch with people, with beings that used to be people, and they have very low vibration. So that's why I don't advise people to do astral travels unless you know very well what you're doing, because you need to go over that. You need to go forward and to go through that, but continue your path. And then as you go upwards, yes, you will find beings that are of higher vibration than ours right here, right now in our bodies. But it doesn't mean that it's easy to get there, because you need to be in that kind of vibration yourself. Otherwise, you cannot stay there. You cannot see it. So that's why Ascension will change a lot of things, because as we go upwards in our vibration, then we will be able to see things that we cannot see with our physical eyes, because our physical eyes can only see 3-dimensional objects and energies. So when you go upwards, you see other kind of energies that are higher vibrational. And then your view of life will change dramatically, because so many other energies will become alive for us. We're not alive before. Yes, they were, but just we couldn't see it. So that's why we are in a very interesting point in time where things are going to change big time.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the Ascension plan a little bit, because you referred to a new Earth before. What does such a big, what does a new Earth look like? As I'm about to ask the question, I'm like, that's an obvious question, and yet I imagine a difficult question to answer. But the question stands, so maybe you can give it a shot. My apologies for the nature of the question.
Well, I think Dolores Cannon was the first one to talk about this, and she did it not just out of her own. She didn't have the visions herself, but she interviewed many people. She took a lot of people through regression and progression process, so people could see when they were under hypnosis. They could see this. And they didn't know each other. So there were many, many cases of people around the world telling the same things, sharing the same visions. And those visions were very clear. There will be a point in time when this Earth will just increase its vibration and will become a 5D Earth. Why? Well, you were talking about that with this astrologer, and that's what many of us are seeing. It's like all those solar flares are taking the planet upwards, and they're taking us. They're giving us the support to do it, but we are the ones doing it. This is not a collective thing. This is an individual thing. Ascension is individual. So you can only ascend when you are ready for it. You cannot be pushed, and there's no point in pushing people going upwards. So that would be one Earth, and it will be divided. I don't know how, because no one knows how this is going to happen. This is a divine plan, and we are not able to seize that, to comprehend that with our limited mind. But at some point, somehow, there will be 2 Earths, and one will be a 5th dimensional, and the other one will be 3rd dimensional. So depending on your level of vibration, you will be on one or the other. So no one is going to choose, okay, you go here, you go here. It's your own vibration, and you cannot fake that. It is what it is, and it's all because of the inner work you have done. So that your inner world will determine where you're going to stand. And of course, this is not going to happen overnight. It will take years, but we are in the middle of the process. It's not something to look forward in, 4 centuries or something like that. I believe, because I have seen that, we will see it in our lifetime.
Whoa. Okay. Thank you for illuminating that. We are getting up the ladder, though, in the conversation. So we are moving towards the individualist in the second band. So back to the 7 levels of wisdom now. So we're moving into this individualist phase where we need to do our own inner work.
Let me just show this so people will know where we are referring to.
What I'm actually referring to. Sorry, I keep talking about it. Thank you. And I will put a link to the book in the description below. It's the engineer in me loves the way you've written the book, because the levels are very clear, very easy to understand. But then also it's completely metaphysical, the book, in terms of our journey onwards and upwards. And it speaks to a lot of the pain points that we're discussing today as well. And also the benefits, the benefits and the blessings of actually doing the work and going forward and upwards. And I know eventually we land to a place, maybe to let the cat out of the bag. This is probably meant to be your drum roll. You can share that we're headed towards a unitive state of consciousness. But nonetheless, we're right now in this individualist phase where, in the story where we actually have to do all of our inner work. And, this is where you've described the nature of the mind, and working with the mind is actually what is #doing the work. I guess a couple of trippy questions that emerge for me is the mind, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate to ask, but the source of mind and the boundary conditions of mind, because I think everybody uses the word mind a lot. But some people picture a brain, some people picture an aura, and some people, it's so subjective to our experience, and yet it's so central to our experience, and yet so many people have a tough time defining the source and the boundary conditions of their mind, which is so integral to their entire experience and perception. I'd love to get your insights here.
Well, the way I see it is we are consciousness. This is who we really are. And then we can call this essence, we can call this the spark of divinity, we can call it the being in us, we can call it our higher self. This is who we really are. And this higher self, this soul, we can use those words interchangeably, even if they are not exactly the same, but so we can understand each other. So that part of us is the one that chooses to incarnate in our body. And once you incarnate in your body, you are in connection with that, because that's who you are. You cannot erase, you cannot cut the connection. You are that. But when you incarnate in a body, what you inherit as a software is the mind or the ego. So it's part of the software, while the essence, the soul, our consciousness is the hardware. So it's just the software is the one that you use to be able to act, to have a life here on 3D Earth. And why people think this is the brain? Because in a paradigm such as ours that is completely biased towards rationality and science, they think they are the same, that your consciousness is your brain. It's not your brain. The brain, you could say that the brain is the mind, is the ego, is the filter that will see things as solid when they are not solid. Is the collective and common agreements that we take, okay, this is a tree, the tree looks like it. But this is the brain, this is the mind that uses those concepts that we can all share a life here together. But this is just like the rules of this game. There are many other games. These are just the ones pertaining to this 3D reality called Earth. So that's why there's a lot of confusion, because so many people don't see ourselves in a holistic way, and they think they are very constrained and limited by the senses. So when you are constrained and limited by the senses, you think that this is who you are. This is not who you are. This is an avatar to play here, in this game called life on 3D. That's it. It's only an avatar. But the real one, let's say like the person playing, like if we use the simile of a video game, the avatar is the person playing in the game. But then the real person that's playing is outside of the screen. And we are in that simulation. We are in that screen with this person. But this is not who we are. We are just using this to be able to play and to learn some lessons and to go through some initiations and trials and tests. And then everything we learn from that game, we take it back to the one playing, which is the oversoul, the higher self, our consciousness. So I don't know if it makes sense, but that's the best I can explain that.
It totally does. Thank you so much for, I love that. There's how does one soften the grip of identification with what the mind is identifying with? Because, and we talked about this a little bit or quite in depth last time, like the impermanence and then the non-attachment, but I think it also fits here in this conversation just really snugly. So I'm asking the question again, pardon me for that, for those that have tuned into the last conversation. But the attachment of the mind can be so grippy. And how do we soften that grip? Yeah, please.
I think it may help to give another, like a different approach that we gave last time, and it might be helpful to people. Is the way I see our ego is the great detector. So once you see that, you are able to see the games and the tricks that our ego, our dictator, uses. So that ego thinks that we are in competition, that sources are scarce, and we have to compare with others all the time, and we have those people around us or in other places are potential competitors, potential enemies. We have to fight against them because otherwise they are going to get ahead and they will take what we want and what we desire because there's not enough for everyone. And our ego thinks in terms of superiority or inferiority. We are not equal. So I want to feel superior, or I feel a victim of others on society or my past or wherever. And that part of ourselves, that is the mind, the ego, will think, okay, I'm struggling here, and I need to make a big effort, and I need to get what I want, because only when I achieve my desires, I will feel satisfied. And then the ego is always thinking, okay, in terms of past, okay, I am my past, and I am so sorry that happened in my life, and those people were to blame, and I am resentful for what they did to me, and I cannot forgive them, and I cannot forget that, and I cannot let it go. And then I'm thinking about all the fears. Oh my God, all those things can happen. And I have all these images in my mind about a horrible future. And you see it so clearly. All that is the works of the ego. So once you know that, it's much easier to disidentify with it, because you know that this cannot be you. This cannot be your consciousness. The consciousness is eternal peace, is always at peace. Our consciousness is always benevolent. Our consciousness is compassionate. Our consciousness is pure wisdom. It's just that we are disconnected from it. So once you know that you are what you are not, then you start exploring what you are. And it doesn't mean that once you know intellectually the whole thing is going to stop. It doesn't work that way.
Sometimes it can be further trapping. Yes.
Right. So there are so many things to work on. You need to work on silencing your mind, and you need to work on not putting so much attention to external sources, because that creates a lot of chatter in the mind, a lot of inner dialogue, another narrative. And then you get trapped into that, and then you get into the ego state of mind. So it's a lot of work, but I think you have clues to start or to progress on your path. And then you have to have a very strong commitment to your evolution, because otherwise the whole environment will just drag you down.
The unitive state of consciousness follows the alchemist. So we go from individuality, we strategize a little bit, and then there's a bit of an alchemy that occurs as we approach this unitive state. I'm conscious, as we round out today's conversation, can you pop us into what those levels of consciousness really look like, what they really feel like? And it almost feels like a reward for doing the work, because some of the people that I've spoken to about being in the unitive state, they describe the unitive state, and it's almost like, yeah, I should let you describe it. But nonetheless, some of the people that I've spoken to, it's like you hear what they have to say about it, and it's like, oh yeah, I see myself as the other, and I am that, and there's no longer subject-object sort of duality, and you hear it, and it sounds a bit. I've said this a couple of times in interviews. It sounds a bit hollow. It's like, oh, there's a bit of emptiness around, and then the response back is, oh no, but it's all love. And then you're like, well, then you lean in and you're like, wait, what? You described something completely empty, and then you said it was just filled with love? What? Now, I'm conscious I've programmed your answer for you, but maybe it's a conversation. Yeah, tell us a little bit around your awareness of the alchemist and the unitive state, and you can just unpack that further for us a little bit, Monica, please.
I think it's interesting to know that it doesn't happen, even if for some people feels it's overnight awakening. I haven't met anyone that has gone through that immediately. You may go faster or slower, but we have to look at the whole process, which takes many lifetimes. So even if here it feels like it's immediate, it doesn't work that way. You don't know what you have been working on for many, many lifetimes. So this is something that we need to take into account, because we feel people, okay, they are so evolved. How did they do it? Well, they worked the asses off before, and we just see the results now. So let's keep that in mind, not to become too critical or judgmental of people, Wherever we are right here, right now, is where we need to work on. And yes, I think it helps when you know that there are different levels of evolution, because it gives you hope, and it gives you like a map. And I think it's very necessary to have a map in this forest of distractions and inputs and lower vibrational stimuli, So it's very important to have the map, because once you have the map, you know where you have to go. And it's inspiring and it's uplifting. So we shouldn't compare ourselves to those that we think that have achieved it yet. We should take that as a possibility, a real possibility. And this is what the Buddha did, and this is what Jesus did. Okay, this is possible, and this is possible right here, right now, for all of us. So I think we should take it as a promise of something that is feasible. And then you go through the different stages. You go from the individualist to a strategist. And then when you become a strategist, you realize that you can become the best version of yourself. And you want to help other people do the same. Sometimes too much, because you don't respect that other people have their own paths, and you should not push them. And that's, I think, the probably one of the downsides of being a strategist. Sometimes you get hooked on that. And then when you become an alchemist, you realize that there are really two worlds: the world of the mundane things, and the other side, where you know that things are perfect, and when you see that things are working in a different way and they are transpersonal, and when you get there through your experiences, whether it's big experiences or through meditation or through contemplation, through prayer, you realize that you are not this body, this mind, these thoughts, these beliefs. You realize there's something else, and it's so fulfilling. But then when you are at the alchemist level, you cannot maintain that all the time. So you reach a great complexity in mind, where very few people can understand you, because you are playing with so many different ideas and mindsets at the same time that other people cannot get to. And it's kind of a solitary part of the path. But at the same time, it's like, okay, there are times where you're so fulfilled that you can explode out of joy and love. But then you have to come back to this world, and it's like, I don't fit in. What do I do with this? This is not what I want to be. So you become like a dichotomy, and it's difficult to be there. And then the last one, the unity. Well, I guess you have had many interviewees talking about this, but I would just say that is a state of consciousness where you feel not only that oneness, that the other and yourself are not different. You feel that perfection of the plan. You know that even what you consider negative or catastrophic, or when you see a child dying, or you see something horrible going on in one part of the world, it's not that you don't feel for those people, you do, but you know that it's happening in perfect order. So you don't suffer with it. You have compassion for those people going through that, knowing that it's also a perfect piece of the puzzle, even if you don't understand it because you lack information and knowledge. So in a way, life becomes like a dance instead of a struggle. So you are dancing here. You are playing the game knowing that you are the player. So you are the dancer. And you came here to play the game with the knowledge, with the consciousness of knowing that this is a game. And you come to this point where you really, really digest, integrate, embody that you are not of this world, even though you are in this world right now. And this is what Jesus talked about, that was the state of consciousness we are all called to have. I don't know if it makes sense, but it's difficult to put into words something that is so ineffable, words are really pale compared to what this is, it's kind of difficult to explain.
You've done amazingly. For those that want to go deeper, the 7 levels of wisdom, you held up the book before. I'll put a link to that in the description and the show notes below. Couple of parting questions. What is your definition of God, Mónica?
God is all there is. It's not something external. It's all of us. It's the force that created the world. It is the source of who we are. It's the cause and the effect, because we will go back to that. But it will be enriched by every single experience we went through. And this is it's not something that is already finished. It's something that is in continuous expansion thanks to our expansion as well. So it's something magical. It's something that is continuing, progressing, expanding. And nothing, absolutely nothing is outside of this.
What's your definition of living a good life?
I think we could start with living a life of purpose. That's a good beginning. and trying to have a meaningful life instead of just going through the motions without any good motivation, any profound motivation, any motivation to be of benefit to the world. I think when you part with that, try to have a life that will benefit others. From your place, with your talents, you don't have to change anything. You are here for a reason. You were born in this situation with these parents in this country for a reason. So don't question them. Just make the best out of it. I think that would be a good life.
That segues perfectly into, what is the ultimate purpose of life in your opinion?
Awaken. This is it. It's like awaken to the reality of who we are and what everybody else is. And just become the unitive one, just go to the highest potential our human nature is here for. Become one with everything and break through the matrix, see everything as it is, and realize that you are the player. And then you can choose how to play.
Mónica, every time you come on, I feel like we're just scratching the surface. There's so much deeper to go. And yet I look back at the conversation, we covered so much ground. Thank you so much, as always, for being so generous with your insights, your presence, your being, and always just sharing so eloquently. You're describing some things as ineffable at times, and yet you do such an amazing job of painting things that are so difficult to describe with such great words, and just really sharing it with us so that we can actually understand the map. And obviously you wrote the book, and I'll put a link to the description below. And I want to thank you for your time today. But for those that have tuned in, even the last conversation we had, your whole life's work is your being, and you transmit from that place. And so just honoring you for who you really are, and always doing the work and always championing us to do the work as well. I just see you, Sister Bear, and thank you so much for everything that you're doing for all of us. I really appreciate it.
You are so sweet and so kind. Thank you so much, Howard, for having me here.
My absolute honor and a pleasure.
But you're doing a great job. You're really opening the minds of many people. You're expanding something that is very necessary right now. So thank you for doing it, really.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure, Amrit.
Alrighty, Inspired Soul, you've made it through to the end of another Inspired Evolution podcast. Thank you so much for your inspiration to evolve. I'm so inspired by your persistence, your diligence, your dedication to your inner work to evolve. On screen right now is an opportunity for you to continue your inspirations and to keep the evolution flowing. There are a couple of episodes on screen which are two personal favorites of mine. As always, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It helps so much more than we can say. This entire channel is powered by your subscription. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.